Hello, and welcome back to the Accounting Podcast, the #1 show for accountants in the world. I'm Blake Oliver.
I'm David Leary.
And we're joined today by Amber Setter. Originally, I was going to have Amber in the backdrop off the show until we went live, but I forgot to do that. So Amber, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
We are here to talk about California, and you're in California. You're in Carlsbad, California. You're a CPA, and you posted on LinkedIn about the California Board of Accountancy moving to create legislation to create an alternative to the 150-hour rule. I couldn't believe this, Amber. I want to get your take on this. Before we do that, I got to play this video from the California Board of Accountancy that explains what happened at the latest meeting.
Hi, I'm Andrew from the California Board of Accountancy with your July 25th and 26th, 2024 meeting recap. This meeting was significant for the CPA Next project, with aims to modernize mobility and CPA licensure requirements. After an in-depth discussion of Agenda Item 2D3 regarding mobility, the CBA approved a motion to direct staff to draft a legislative proposal for review at the September CBA meeting that would implement automatic mobility. Automatic mobility would potentially allow CPAs in other states to automatically have practice privilege rights in California, subject to important consumer protection safeguards. Another important discussion took place on Agenda Item 2D4 regarding the minimum requirements for CPA licensure. The board was presented with an overview of possible options to modernize the licensure requirements while still ensuring they align with minimum competency for safe practice. The CBA approved a motion to direct staff to draft a legislative proposal for review at the September meeting that would eliminate the total 150-unit requirement and allow applicants to meet the educational requirements with a bachelor's degree and an increase in experience. The proposal would also preserve a pathway for applicants to complete a specified advanced degree with a 1-year experience requirement. In the agenda item, this is referred to as the Licensure Framework with Expressway. Representatives from the California Society of Certified Public Accountants were in attendance to share their organization's support on both agenda items. All meetings can always be viewed live or on demand on the live stream page of the CBA website. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in September from San Diego.
Wow. I am amazed. First of all, great production on that. Kudos to the California Board of Accountancy. And Amber, you were first to LinkedIn with your take on this. Give it to us now. How do you feel about this? What do you think about what the CBA is doing?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I learned of it last Wednesday. I was at the Cal CPA. They had their member summit in Huntington Beach, and I happened to sit on the government relations committee. So I first heard about it on Wednesday. And much like you said, surprised, I raised my hand and I said, wait a minute, am I hearing this right? Has there been a seismic shift in what's going on? Am I really hearing that we're softening on this and this old narrative, we have to have 150 because of mobility, which I never believed to be true, but was the narrative, and that has definitely shifted. So kudos to the California Board of Accountancy and the Cal CPA for their legislative efforts for starting to write some really meaningful legislation.
And maybe this is the result of that survey that we saw the California Board of Accountancy put out not that long ago. They did a Survey Monkey, and according to a memo that they published last month, got thousands and thousands of responses, over 7,000, and they published the results here. And I want to highlight some of these for you. 89% of respondents agreed that a bachelor's in accounting should fully meet the educational requirements for licensure. I think that is the biggest number we've seen in any of these surveys so far. I recall David, do you remember what state did it? And it was like 80%, 79%, something
I thought
like
you said
that.
Arizona.
Was it? Yeah, Arizona
The paper
did. Yep.
magazine said Arizona.
And but this is way beyond that. And the AICPA did its own survey, and it was like in the 60s or 70s. But this is quite definitive. I mean, when can you ever get 89% of anybody in this country to agree on anything?
So they went from survey these results to writing legislation. Now, no study. We need to have committees. They're like, write the legislation. Like it's that obvious to them.
So only 11% of respondents in the survey said that they think we should keep the education requirement, or 10% said that. Nearly half of partners/hiring managers would prefer to hire someone with a bachelor's and 2 years of experience compared to only 10% who preferred an applicant with an advanced degree and 1 year of experience. And most respondents, 76%, would support the removal of the 150 semester unit requirement, even if it impacted a CPA's ability to obtain practice privilege rights in other states. So that, Amber, goes to that mobility argument. Apparently, California CPAs just aren't that concerned about mobility. Why do you think that is as a California CPA?
I mean, I think first and foremost, the results of this survey are really reflecting the sign of the times. We are living in an era where it's not like this pipeline issue is going to happen. We're living it, right? So when I'm in my work as a professional coach, talking to accountants all the time, these are the things I'm hearing. I'm hearing, one is there's not enough levels of review in the system because they don't have enough people to do the work. And then that becomes an issue with the Board of Accountancy, right? Whether you're like the people who say, well, lawyers and doctors, you can't water down the education. State boards exist to protect the public. And right now the public's not being protected without an adequate amount of people to do the work. So, in California, we have, just like I think across the US at this time, not enough people to do the work, inadequate levels of review, and that is an issue for the public. I think specific to California, I mean, let's be honest, we are a big domino in this system. So we're not the first state that said, hey, let's try and do this legislation. Minnesota did it. And what did AICPA do? They sent letters to all the CPAs in Minnesota like, oh, this threatens mobility. And I don't think the AICPA has the gumption to try and do that in California. I think California is a huge domino. I would hope other states are already calling California up saying, hey, what are you doing? We want to do this too. And, here we go. Maybe we can really dismantle this thing.
And what's great about what California is doing is they're not just creating the alternative pathway, they are also broadening mobility so that any CPA, I mean, this is all draft legislation, right? Let's just put that, and it hasn't even been drafted yet. They have simply authorized the staff to draft the legislation. But what they want, according to this memo, is that any CPA licensed in another state will automatically get mobility into California without having to prove that they have the education requirements met, all this nitpicky stuff that you experience when you try to go from one state to another. Let's just streamline that, right?
And that's interesting because then the other states are going to copy that. They're like, hey, if it's good enough for California, we should have the same policy.
Yeah, it's like driver's licenses, right? When you drive across a state line, you don't have to go to the DMV and prove that you passed the exam to get licensed in California, right?
Right.
Like that would be a little bit inconvenient, right? So
yeah. I had a student who sent me a LinkedIn message in response to my post, and they said, help me understand, who is the AICPA versus the CBA? And I think that sometimes we lose sight of that question, right? What is the AICPA responsible for? They're responsible for exam content. NASBA is responsible for administration. The state boards of accountancy have the jurisdiction to say what the educational requirements should be and experience requirements. So just because the AICPA has an opinion about it doesn't mean we have to follow as a state that opinion. And the moment that California says, oh, we're going to recognize a CPA, if you're a CPA wherever, you're a CPA here. And that's a new thing, right? And that's why I've said for a long time, like when we say we can't get rid of the 150-hour rule because of mobility, that's the laziest answer. There's no critical thinking in how do we make this work. And California is paving the way for how we can make it work.
Now, to be fair, the AICPA has created the National Pipeline Advisory Group, and they have just issued their report on what to do about this CPA pipeline problem. And I went through it. I took a look at the PDF, and it really is, unless you guys think otherwise, like to me, it looks pretty much like the same thing as the draft report that came out a few months before. And there's no specific immediate recommendations to make changes to fix the pipeline. I think this is my biggest complaint about the AICPA, is that every single initiative seems to be, let's do more research. Let's do another survey. Let's gather input from stakeholders. But when it comes time to act, there's nothing there. And why is that? Why can't the AICPA understand that this is urgent and we need to do something like this year?
Well, I think, and I have not looked at the final report, but I think we talked about this before, and you start reading between the lines, some of the language they're using is almost like they're accepting change is coming, but they want to be in control of the change. They don't want all the states going and doing this themselves. They want to be the ones that make the change to this rule.
But then they don't make specific recommendations for the change. It's like very broad, and there's no specific timeline. It's almost like they're afraid to do anything. They just want to talk and talk and talk. And I mean, you look at the numbers, and we are on a plummeting negative trajectory with CPA licensure. Like, there's just not time for this. We're gonna, if we don't do something about this in the next year or two, we will be in a situation where there aren't enough accountants to ensure that financial statements are accurate and free of, misstatement. And that's a threat to our economy.
It truly is. That's the thing that it's interesting in the LinkedIn thread where people are like, there's a few, those 10 percenters, let's refer to them as, they're like, well, you're watering the designation down. I'm like, watering the designation down or protecting the public? I don't know. And to your question of like, okay, the AICPA does surveys and they put out information. I think what they're lacking is boldness in their action, right? And we need to do things faster and quicker. And I get it. I get that it's hard when you're a behemoth organization, you're the Titanic, 1 degree of change, 1 degree of change. But that survey was nice, but the only action I saw to take out of it was to take a pledge. I need more than a pledge. I need some legislation. I need some changes. People need to know that they're being heard, because I would say us on here, and thank you to you two for being advocates against the 150. We've been saying for a long time, something needs to be done. And now I feel like finally affirmed that some action is coming, right? We're turning a corner. Hopefully people will follow. And I think this is fantastic news for the profession.
Really great news. Amber Setter, thank you for joining us to discuss this. Hopefully we'll have you back when the California Board of Accountancy moves to push forward draft legislation to put that to the legislature.
Hey, it just so happens that their next meeting when they're going to talk about the legislation is at Cal State San Marcos in September. And I'm about to move 5 minutes away from Cal State San Marcos. So as long as it's public, I will be there taking copious notes, and I'd be happy to report back.
Excellent. We'll talk to you then. Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
Amazing. Welcome to our live stream viewers. Boring Accountant, our biggest fan here. 3 coffee emojis. Like and subscribe as well. Thank you. Actually, I would like to let all of our listeners know we are nearing an important milestone. We are approaching 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. I think we're at 19,600 right now. And if we get to 20,000 soon, we'll get there before Jason Statz, the #1 accounting YouTuber who inspired us to go on video, to turn this from an audio podcast to a video podcast. So let's race to 20,000. Find us on YouTube. Just search for the Accounting Podcast, subscribe, and hit that notification button, and you will get notified when we go live. And David, before we go to our first ad break, I want to call out Boring Accountant's comment here. Boring Accountant says, most students are taught to believe that the United States is one country, when in reality, the United States is 50 states/countries coming together as one nation. Very similar to the EU. Yes, unfortunately, I feel like a lot of kids don't take civics these days. And if you take civics in high school, you will learn that the United States is a federalist system, right? Where a lot of stuff, especially the CPA licensure process, is reserved to the states, right? All powers not explicitly granted to the federal government are reserved to the states, including licensure of professions.
Because the states are just using NASBA and AICPA as a service, because the state doesn't want to have to build their own test, right, and administrate their own tests. So they're utilizing these contractors to some extent. They're third-party contractors providing a service to them.
And this is why I would argue that NASBA, in some ways, could be considered unconstitutional, because these states have delegated important decision-making authority to an organization that is actually a private corporation that is accountable to no individuals, to no taxpayers, to no citizens. And if you ask me, that's why we have this problem, because the people who work for NASBA are so insulated from public opinion, from accountability, that they can do whatever they want. They are unaccountable bureaucrats. And you want to talk about the deep state? That's the deep state right there. That's NASBA. NASBA's the deep state, to use a popular term. And with that, let's go to our first sponsor, LiveFlow. Thank you, LiveFlow, for sponsoring our show.
LiveFlow is successfully automating financial reporting from QuickBooks Online to Google Sheets for hundreds or thousands of accountants and their clients. But if you're an accountant that has used Microsoft Excel, you've been missing out until now. Now you can use LiveFlow to connect Microsoft Excel to QuickBooks Online and sync your reports and custom dashboards in real time. With LiveFlow's newest feature, in just a few clicks, you can automate financial reporting from QuickBooks Online and sync your data with Excel to create live, auto-updating dashboards and reports, keeping your clients in the loop. And LiveFlow makes customizing reports easy. Add rows, columns, calculations without breaking the live connection. Even your formatting stays in place when the QuickBooks data refreshes. You'll save hours every month by eliminating manual exports and fixing broken spreadsheets. And you'll finish client work in record time by utilizing LiveFlow's over 100 customizable templates. It's a true set-it-and-forget-it solution that allows you to spend more time offering insightful client advisory. To revolutionize your financial reporting in Excel with LiveFlow and get 25% off your first 3 months, head over to accountingpodcast.promo/LiveFlow. That is accountingpodcast.promo/LiveFLOW.
And as somebody who previously stayed up late exporting and re-exporting financial statements because I missed something, I would have loved to have LiveFlow when I was a manager doing financial reporting for my CAS clients. So check it out. Support our podcast by doing that. Thank you. Now, David, we've got more to talk about than just CPA licensure. What else is hot? What have you been following the last week or two?
I think for me, we saw Markham. CBiz bought Markham. That was kind of a big news.
CBiz merging with Markham to create one of the largest accounting firms in the world now. Mega merger, as described by Accounting Today. What are the details?
So congratulations to all of you on the top 100. You all moved up one notch in your rankings, because CBiz with MHM, who did a lot of administrative stuff for them, they were ranked number 11th. And then you had Markham ranked at number 13. So CBiz, which is a public company, is now buying Markham for $2.3 billion in cash and stock. Now, they're only buying their non-attest assets of Markham. And then the MHM, which is Mayer Hoffman McCann PC, they are acquiring the attest assets.
So this is the alternative practice structure that CBiz has?
Yes.
Or is it are they related firms?
They're related firms where they're a partner where they did certain types of work for CBiz. Yeah.
Got it.
So this is going to combine. It's going to give them 10,000 team members and over 135,000 clients. So one thing I was wondering about this was the SPACs, right? I mean, remember Markham and Rhythm were doing the vast majority of SPACs. Mm-hmm. And then I went back and looked. It wasn't as big, because I was like, even with all the SPACs, but Rhythm really did a lot more of the SPACs. But Markham, so they had 1/5 of its total audit fees, 184 million, were attributed to auditing SPACs. So in the grand scheme of the whole deal, I think the SPAC stuff was just a teeny bullet point.
Right. Well, and my question about this whole thing is what's going to happen to the staff? Is this going to be good for the staff or is this going to be bad for the staff? And maybe it won't matter at all. It'll just be a different logo on the door. But there is one data point that makes me a little concerned, which is that of all the big accounting firms on bigfourtransparency.com, which is a crowdsourced salary website that also allows accountants to report the hours they work, CBiz has the highest amount of overtime of any of the firms. CBiz is a public company and not a traditional accounting firm. So will Markham employees, staff, be working more hours now that they're part of CBiz? Seems probable. And this is the concern I have with all of these either publicly traded accounting firms or accounting firms that are being bought by private equity is, well, how do you get profits out of these firms? If you're a traditional minded manager in an accounting firm, it's work them as many hours as you can and bill as many hours as possible. So we'll see.
So CBiz is a public corporation, so I'm assuming it's a full C-suite hierarchy of decision making, right?
I would assume. I don't know.
Not a partner vote, right? Not consensus of all the partners. So how does that work? Like if Markham had more of the partner ownership model of decision making, now they're just going to throw that away?
I mean, without more details, we can only speculate. But I would speculate that basically the equity partners have been bought out. They are getting paid either upfront or over time, and there will be no equity remaining for the Markham folks. So the people who are probably the most affected by this in a negative way are those managers and directors and non-equity partners that we're hoping to get an equity stake someday.
Like you talked about last week, the non-equity partners.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's no longer available to them. So will we see an exodus from Markham? If somebody wants to get equity, they're not going to get it at CBiz. Unless CBiz has some sort of employee stock ownership plan, but I haven't heard about that. So, all right, moving on. The Pentagon has found another $2 billion for Ukraine with accounting errors. We talked about this months ago on the pod. And it kind of boggles my mind that you could find $2 billion due to accounting errors. But I guess the military is enormous, so it's possible. Basically, the story is this. The U.S. Department of Defense has struggled with accurately valuing defense articles sent to Ukraine due to unclear accounting definitions. So originally, when this equipment was sent to Ukraine, the Pentagon used replacement value instead of depreciated value for calculating the billions of materials sent to Ukraine. And we all know that something that is fully depreciated or nearly fully depreciated has almost no accounting value.
So if they sent a jet that was $100 million, they counted it as $100 million of value. Now they realized, oh, wait, that jet's really only worth $20 million.
Yeah, or less, right? Yeah. So apparently it's been $6.2 billion adjustment at this point because they've started using, or they switched to using, the depreciated value. And I guess the reason they're able to do this is because the Foreign Assistance Act, the language in the legislation that authorized this funding, doesn't specify what type of valuation method to use. So if the legislation doesn't specify the method to value the equipment, then the Pentagon can say, well, you know what, we're just going to switch valuation methods and use the one that's most beneficial to us, which is, the Pentagon the administration wants to support Ukraine right now. So that's what they're going to do.
So it was $6.2 billion, and now it's an additional $2 billion.
Well, it was a $6.2 billion cumulative error at this point.
Oh, cumulative.
So,
okay.
And this is the next $2 billion that they've found by revaluing the equipment that was sent to Ukraine. So lesson here is always specify a clear definition for how you're determining the value of anything that you are selling or donating or buying in a contract, because there are many, many different ways to value things, and you should be clear as to what method you're using. Value is highly subjective, And it depends on your accounting.
And then on the other side, they're spending hundreds of billions to replace this equipment, though, that they're giving away.
Right. So, I suppose like there's an argument to be made that, the war in Ukraine benefits the American economy to some extent. There's that military-industrial complex going on right there, right? Because all this stuff has to be reordered to replenish our supplies. All right, what do you got, David?
I have some interesting numbers about AI from Intuit that just really paints a picture of, I talked about this before, Intuit scale, Intuit volume. It's always hard to comprehend, right? And so they had a blog post really kind of recapping how AI was used during their tax season. Right. And it's a little bit of a look at us, we're so great type of a blog post. So I don't want to kind of go into that path. But we've talked about a lot of AI companies and they're like, oh, we have 1 billion data points we've trained our AI on. Seems impressive, right? So Intuit, this is just April 15th of 2024. Sorry, I forgot what year we were in. They logged 185 billion real-time transactions and processed 14 petabytes of real-time data in 1 day. And they processed 500 million user requests and 11 million transactions per second across 50 billion data points. It is insane volume. When you think about all these other apps are going to start at money and we've trained on, this much data, the amount of data Intuit has is completely insane.
Yeah, I mean, when you cite numbers like that, it just washes over me. I hear like the wah, 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 wah. That's what I hear. It's like Charlie Brown and his teacher.
But in 1 day, 185 billion. 1 day. That's crazy.
That's from TurboTax?
Yeah.
Is that like everyone filing their return at the last minute? I can't even imagine what it's like to be one of those like reliability engineers at Intuit on the day before the tax deadline, like praying and hoping.
It's scary.
That it doesn't go down, right?
It's happened before, though. It's happened before. Yeah.
And that's probably like, millions of dollars of fees that are lost if that happens. Where do we go next? Let's see. You mentioned AI news. So I wanted to highlight an update from Avalara. Avalara has launched Avi, a generative AI chatbot designed to assist users with tax compliance queries through its global support portal and product interface. It's equipped to provide detailed guidance on product-related questions and general tax inquiries, but does not have access to individual user accounts for personalized data. So basically, you can get support, ask for help with tax questions, and it's using chatbot technology, AI chatbot technology to give you that. And it was developed using advanced AI models and Avalara's extensive tax compliance knowledge. It continuously learns and updates its responses based on new information, and it's now available at no cost to users. It's been added into this global support portal.
And so it's part of a support portal. It's not part of like individual products.
No,
right?
Not at this point. It doesn't look like. But I think that's where the opportunity is once people get comfortable with it having access to your data, then I feel like, especially for stuff like sales tax, where there are so many different rules and so many different jurisdictions, AI is a perfect solution to getting answers to say, like, here's a product that I'm selling in this address, and what are all the things that I need to think about in terms of, is this taxable or not, based on all the different local, state rules, and where I'm shipping it, who it's shipping from. Like, an AI should be able to figure that stuff out really quickly.
Or get you closer to when you bring in an accountant or somebody to review it. Most of the work's done already.
Yeah. And welcome, Heather Smith, who has joined us live. Heather says, hi from Houston. Nice to watch in the same time zone. Yeah, you don't have to get up so early for us.
Actually, since Heather's here, we need a little down under reporting. I saw last week, Xero had an outage. I didn't really hear about it till days and days afterwards. Any insight to that, Heather? You could put a comment in there.
Put a comment in the chat. And same goes for all of our live stream viewers. If you have any thoughts about what we're talking about, or you have stories that you think we should cover, we see all of it here, whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook. We see your comments here in our streaming platform. So go ahead and let us know what you think. All right. Where next?
I have a quick AI thing because this is the dream you've talked about a lot. You have some AI that collects your tax documents.
Mm-hmm.
So SafeSend announced they're debuting their product. It's called Next Gen Gather AI. So it'll be interesting to see what this is going to do. But essentially, it's to help you collect e-signatures, engagement letters, generate those questionnaires, collect all those documents. It's you've talked about this, Blake. Like somebody needs to build this, and that's going to really help up your firm. So SafeSend's rolling this out. I don't know when it's going to be rolled out. I'm a client of a firm that uses SafeSend, so hopefully maybe I get to experience this and I'll report back. But this is another good use of AI, which it's not building the tax, it's not making the final decisions, but if it can just collect documents, it's super efficient.
Evan, welcome to the show. Evan says, hey, from Philly, been watching y'all's shorts for a while now. Oh, that's awesome that the shorts are getting people to come to the live stream. YouTube Shorts has been incredible. We started putting out clips every day on YouTube Shorts, and millions of people have seen them. And I'm wondering to myself, who are these millions of people? So, Evan, I'm glad you saw them. I'm curious to know, are you an accountant? Are you a tax professional, audit? What do you do? We'd love to know more about our listeners, so feel free to put that in the chat as well. Heather says Xero had 2 big outages due to AWS. So not Xero's fault, just the platform that they're on, AWS. Whenever AWS goes down, about half of the cloud accounting infrastructure goes down as well. Not as bad as CrowdStrike, but they're usually up pretty fast. Actually, since we have Heather on the show, I want to play a video that Heather sent us a little while ago. This is called The Accountants, and I actually have to get through an ad before we can watch it. So, David, you got a story, and then I'll play the video from Heather.
I don't have a
wait,
one-off
never mind.
story,
I got
so
through it.
go ahead.
Okay, I'm ready to go. So here, add this to the stage, and let's see, full screen, play.
The power. Each and every one of you has the power to change the world.
This video is called The Accountants.
To bring people together. Change the game.
We've got a guy doing
Protect the planet.
I don't even know how to describe what we're watching here, but picture an Avengers movie.
And become champions in a league of your own.
Heroes will rise.
It's time to make epic things happen.
The Accountants. Must see for your future career. Apparently this clip has been played. Oh, hold on. Gotta stop that. Apparently this clip has been played in movie theaters in Australia now to promote accounting as a cool profession. I don't know how to describe it.
So before the new Deadpool Wolverine movie starts,
yes,
this would play in front of the movie as a trailer or a commercial.
Yeah. Now, okay, it is kind of neat. I gotta say, it is great to see accounting being promoted as like a exciting profession. But also I think there's danger in this, because when expectation does not meet reality, then you have a disconnect. And I think we can fairly say that accounting is not like it is represented in that trailer there. And I have always said that accounting isn't cool. Accounting isn't sexy. It doesn't have to be. And so we shouldn't market it as such. Like, that's not the solution to the accounting shortage, in my humble opinion. The solution to the accounting shortage is to make accounting a great job. It doesn't have to be cool or sexy if you just make it offer work-life balance, flexibility, work from home, and a decent salary and job security. Plenty of people will sign up for that. We don't all need to be heroes, right? The people who want to be heroes, they can go be paramedics. The people who want to be heroes, they can be firefighters. That's not accounting. We didn't sign up for that. We don't want it.
It ties in. So I worked the election last Tuesday, and I was really thinking about what's the appeal of that to me, besides the fact that I believe people should vote. And it really ties to like fundamental core accounting interests or values or beliefs, the way I like to work, right? I like process. So if you like process, it fits in well. There's everything ticks and ties at the end, right? There's rigor and discipline and inventory. It's all happens during the election. And so it's a lot of accounting jobs, right? It makes a lot of sense. But maybe that's the way they should market accounting. Hey, do you like processes and procedures? Do you like it when things end up perfectly at the end? Maybe accounting's for you. Maybe play up the personality types of things you like to do as being an accounting job.
Yeah. Do you like playing epic strategy games with complex rule sets that you have to master in order to win the game? Because that's basically what accounting is, right? Like, so that's what we need to be thinking about. Like, if I were the CEO of the AICPA, that's what I would be pushing for when we use our marketing dollars to promote the CPA credential license. Don't call it a credential. It's a license. People will get upset about that. All right, David, it's time to thank our second sponsor of this episode, LendFlow.
LendFlow. So as an accountant, you've probably noticed that clients don't always choose the best options when it comes to financing or taking out a loan. Imagine being able to offer your clients a curated list of loan options that you've personally vetted, ensuring they receive a great rates, terms that truly benefit their business, and increase your firm's revenue. With LendFlow, this becomes a reality. LendFlow empowers accounting firms to offer an unparalleled suite of credit and loan products. You'll curate your own marketplace of specialized lenders, providing your clients access to the diverse range of financial solutions, from SBA loans to bank term loans to equipment financing and commercial real estate loans. LendFlow delivers a comprehensive array of options tailored to your clients' needs. LendFlow lets you present this entire loan marketplace on your own website using your branding. This gives your clients a professionally, fully digitized and streamlined process that sets your firm apart. With impressive approval rates of up to 95% and loan amounts ranging from $2,000 to over $5 million, you can confidently meet the diverse needs of your business clients. To help your clients secure the capital they need to thrive while simultaneously boosting your firm's revenue streams, head over to accountingpodcast.promo/LendFlow. That is accountingpodcast.promo/LENDFLOW.
All right, David, my next story ties into what we were just talking about. How do we make accounting an appealing career? And I think this story is something we should be highlighting. I saw this in moneywise.com. Accountant Jeff Teeples left his $170,000 job at the age of 42, choosing to live off dividends from his $1.25 million portfolio. His decision was facilitated by his wife's stable job and his own financial planning. So this is a guy who went into accounting, got himself into a six-figure role, worked really hard for, I'm going to guess, 2 decades, and saved up so much money that he has a nest egg of $1.25 million. And with that money, he can afford to retire. So he lived frugally. He avoided bad debt. He invested in dividend stocks. He paid off his $75,000 college debt quickly. He got a job at Boeing to do that. And he used the company's 401k match program. And he has what seems to be like a smart investment strategy. Focuses on stocks that can deliver a robust total return, focuses on dividend income, dividend growth, price appreciation, rather than chasing those with the highest yield. So he's going for a safe approach. And yeah, like that is something I would be promoting. Old? 42.
42. He's one of those, I think they call them FIRE, right? Financial independent, retire early. Like it's a lifestyle. It's a movement. It's a lifestyle.
It was really popular a few years ago. It was like going around the financial planning circles, people talking about how they did this. And yeah, if you live really frugally, let's say you make, $150,000 a year and you can live off just the $50,000, you can save $100,000 a year.
Yeah. Which adds up quick.
Yeah, and that would, you got to pay tax on that, so it's going to take longer than 10 years to get to the $1 million mark, right? But over 20 years, you could certainly do that. And then, $1 million portfolio could pretty easily, and safely return, 5% to you conservatively to live on. And so if you've been living on $50,000 a year you could continue to live on $50,000 a year and not work, or just work if you want to. And that's your play money. That's your vacation money, right? So I love this idea. I think that we should be talking about how accounting is a great pathway to this. And actually, I was talking with my wife, and she says that one of the moms in her mom group in our neighborhood actually did this, worked for a Big Four, worked really hard for like 10, 15 years, and saved a bunch of money, and just quit, and now doesn't work anymore, and has enough money to, it's the nest egg, live off of that.
So your argument is like we should be finding more stories like this of people that worked really hard for a short amount of time and retired early from accounting.
Yeah, especially if you want to try to attract people into those jobs that still require a lot of hours, right? Because that, to me, is a reasonable reward. I would consider signing up for something like that if I were 20 years old and I saw that as a possible pathway. It's like, okay, I'm going to work really hard for 10, 20 years, and then I'm going to retire early. I might sign up for that. But I wouldn't do it if I'm going to work for the rest of my life.
And usually those people that are signing up for that FIRE lifestyle usually already have like personal finance. It's a hobby of theirs. So it's not, you're right, it's not too much far of a jump to encourage them to just become accountants.
Yeah. I mean, in that way, accounting almost becomes like being a police officer in that, right, those careers, you retire early because you can't be a cop when you're over 50, like the physical demands of it, you can't be out on the street. And then you go have another career after that. Like, you can do that in accounting. You don't have to work in it your whole life. But I don't hear stories like this. I don't hear state societies promoting this kind of path.
Well, I think that's even Tino's argument in the chat here.
Tino says, let's promote accounting jobs in federal government. The benefits are awesome. And clearly, as you've noted with today's and previous podcasts, the Fed needs a lot of good accountants to find all that missing money. Yeah, that's right. The federal government needs good accountants, and those jobs are very steady, job for life kind of situation. You get great benefits. Tino, you want to chat in and say how much PTO people get in the government? Give us an idea of these benefits, because
these are 20 years in retired time of jobs, right? They're usually capped.
I don't know how it works. But yeah, if you want to share anything about that, we'll put that up on the screen here in the live stream. And that's sort of like the other option, right? That's another side of accounting. You've got the FIRE, work crazy hours, save a lot of money, retire early, folks. And then you could have like the, I just want to have like a 35-hour-a-week job. And a lot of these government positions now let you work remotely. And I want to get a lot of PTO and take it easy. And to me, there's room for everybody if you have those kind of jobs available. And we should have a profession that has room for everybody, depending on what kind of job you want. All right. Should we get some listener mail, David?
Yeah.
Okay. You stop me whenever we need to do our sponsor messages. So this is from Dan. This is regarding the Barry Melanson coverage on our previous episode. I think it was 2 ago. We talked about Barry's retiring.
Yes.
At the ASCPA, the CEO of the ASCPA, after 3 decades leading the organization. Dan says, Blake, you are 100% on target about Barry. He has ruined the profession and the AICPA. They should have been the org that saw this shortage coming, and they probably did see it, which is why they have moved to their international focus and worked to improve the accountant image and education issues. The org is nothing about increased dues. The org is nothing but about increased dues and CPE. They are no longer an advocate for the profession. The dues are completely out of alignment with the benefits, and they are focused on international growth rather than U.S.-based issues. They even allowed non-CPAs to obtain AICPA designations, such as the ABV. Good riddance, Barry. That is Dan, and he is mincing no words.
Yes, tell us how you really feel
there. Yeah, tell us how you really feel. We love hearing from you. Phil wrote in on the same topic and said, Blake, the same could be said about NASBA and their defense of the 150-hour rule. NASBA should be concentrating their efforts on uniformity among the states as to the requirements to sit and become licensed. Uniformity and changes in CPE requirements are something else that they could be working on. Instead, it seems that over the years, all they have done is grow their organization as well. Your quote below says it all. We need bold leaders willing to make tough changes to secure a thriving future for CPAs. Phil. Phil is an associate professor of accounting. Thank you, Phil, for listening and for writing in. Appreciate all your kind words. You can send us a message at theaccountingpodcast@earmark.me. Make sure you put the in front. We are theaccountingpodcast@earmark.me. Or, even better, you can join our community. Go to earmark.community. David, would you put that in the chat for everyone? Sign up for your free account. We don't charge you to be a part of our community. And let us know what you think. There's a space for the Accounting Podcast. You can comment on any of the stories that we've shared, offer your own suggestions, or just participate in general discussion. And, that's growing. We've got some folks in there and love to have you as well. Here's another message. This is on a different topic. This is from Amy. She's asking for career advice for her son. Amy says, "Hi, I am the mom of a 19-year-old son who is majoring in accounting. He will be a sophomore this fall and will take his first college-level accounting class. Can you share any advice on a career path for someone who is not interested in working for big corporate? Do you think he would benefit from taking a QuickBooks class and trying to start a side hustle using that? If so, can you recommend a course? YouTube suggested your podcast to me when we were looking at the difference between finance and accounting majors. I'm a former marketing director, but I've enjoyed listening to you. I've learned a lot about the profession. Thank you." Well, thank you, Amy. And David, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to Amy. What do you think about taking a QuickBooks class?
I always think that's a good idea. Like, it's super important to do. But even better, we could just go right into our ad, because coincidentally, our ad is about a workshop for a bookkeeping business and learning QuickBooks.
Let's hear it.
It says we might have had trouble. Are we still hooked up to YouTube? Did something drop?
Looks good to me. I see that we're live.
All right, good. All right. The Ambitious Bookkeeper. If you've dreamed of starting your own bookkeeping or accounting business, the Bookkeeping Biz Workshops can help you turn that dream into a reality. This 5-day live workshop series, hosted by Serena Shoup, CPA, will equip you with everything you need to launch your virtual bookkeeping business. You'll attend actionable workshops that cover what it takes to really succeed, how to navigate essential tech tools, and ways to build a sustainable business model, not just another job. You'll also master discovery calls and learn to sell without feeling sleazy. Say goodbye to the overwhelm of not knowing where to start. These workshops will answer your pressing questions about launching your bookkeeping business, from choosing the right technology to finding and securing clients. Don't let uncertainty hold you back from your entrepreneurial journey. The Bookkeeping Biz Workshops will give you the confidence and skills to transform your accounting expertise into a thriving virtual bookkeeping business. The workshops kick off August 26th, so secure your spot now and get ready to build the business of your dreams. Head over to accountingpodcast.promo/BB workshop. That is accountingpodcast.promo/BB WORKSHOP.
Definitely check that out, Amy. And I would add, listen to the Unofficial QuickBooks Accountants podcast. That's the Unofficial QuickBooks Accountants podcast. Alicia Katz-Pollock, Hector Garcia, two legends in the QuickBooks world, share their expertise. And you can find that show at uqb.show. Type that into your browser, uqb.show, and subscribe. And you will get tons of great QuickBooks insights. I would also say that...
Oh, good. I was gonna say, tying this back to Amber, right? And the arguments on Amber's post are like, oh, you're dumbing down the profession, or people are going to have less skills. And I really think about, like, we had interns here that were accounting majors. One went and, she's smart, right? She was the top 10 score for Arizona CPA candidates, right, on the test. But she couldn't reconcile QuickBooks. Like, the concept was never taught, right? So you just have to learn this, because the colleges are not going to teach you.
The colleges, unfortunately, the curriculum is determined by PhDs who have had like 1 or 2 years of practical experience, and which often isn't that practical when you're in the Big Four. And so they don't actually know how to do any of this stuff in real life, and yet they're teaching it. We have tied the education in our profession to an educational establishment that is expensive, bloated, overpriced. I'm using different words to describe the same thing. But also, like, not practical. It's all theoretical. And I know there are great educators, and the ones listening are on the cutting edge. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the ones who, like, don't even know what's happening. And like that's the problem. And we need to free accounting from their claws, right? That's why we need to allow anyone with a bachelor's degree to sit for the CPA exam, because that way accounting programs would actually have to earn their accounting majors. They wouldn't just get it because you have to do it in order to sit for the CPA exam. And if they provide good education, great, people will take it. And if they don't, people will go elsewhere to get the education they need to become CPAs.
That's going to be a big ripple effect. Indirect effect is the colleges they don't have this guaranteed pipeline of students now.
Tino came back to us about the benefits of working in the government. Tino says, I get 25 days off paid vacation and can carry that over up to 2 years, plus 11 paid holidays as well as 4 hours of sick leave, a vested pension program after 5 years of service, matching contributions out 5% of your contribution to a TSP account. That's a tax advantage savings, either Roth or traditional. I work permanently remotely, and the rest of my team is spread across America. I can go on and on. That sounds great.
So that's like 35 days off a year. It's a whole month. Pretty good.
Connor 53 says, what about the CGMA designation? Is it a bogus attempt by the AICPA to move into management accounting? Well, so this is something that I have not really paid attention to, but I have started to pay attention to recently. This certified global management accountant, and it was created by the AICPA when they merged, I think it's when they merged with CIMA, which was the International Certified Institute of Management Accountants. It's big in the UK and in Europe, but like I have never met anyone who called themselves a CGMA here in the United States that wasn't already a CPA. Like it just is not part of, like if you just walked up to people on the street and said, do you know what a CGMA is? Nobody would know. Does that make sense?
The brand, it doesn't have the brand here.
Yeah. And why did the AICPA do this? Why did they create this CGMA thing? I think it's because they control it and they earn all the fees from it. And so they own it. The states don't. And it's a big moneymaker for the AICPA. But they really shot themselves in the foot when they created it, because for a few years, if you were a CPA and you had like enough work experience, you could just pay a few $100s and become a CGMA, and you didn't have to take a test. So there's all these CGMAs out there, and it could be most of them who like earned it by paying money to get it. It like completely devalues the CGMA, and to me, it's a joke. Like it's just a money grab.
The organization insisting on extra education will give you a certification just by paying. You don't have to take the test. You don't have to take classes.
Yeah, that was how they got it going. Oh, and you have to pay them to take the exams to become a CGMA, and they, of course, sell you the materials and stuff, right? So, like, this is the problem with the AICPA is, right, everything the AICPA does seems to be about growing the influence and the money of the AICPA, not on helping your average CPA in America. And if they just surveyed the members, they would find that they are not very popular. And when I talk to CPAs and ask, okay, why are you a member? The answer is, well, my firm pays for it, so I might as well be one. And the second answer is because they have good life insurance benefits. I can buy discounted life insurance, and that covers the cost of my membership. And I'm thinking to myself, if that's the reason you're a member, the AICPA is in trouble long term, because that's not sustainable.
Well, we could create a pool for the accounting podcast, and we're just like an insurance. We'll just get all accountants a really good discount on insurance, and then we'll have lots of members paying us.
Right.
You don't have to have any other services.
I don't understand why somebody else doesn't do that. Just do the same thing for a lower membership fee. AV in the live stream chat says, is 29 years old too late to get into accounting? I still have 2 years to get my bachelor's in accounting. No, absolutely not. I switched into accounting. Let's see. I graduated when I was like 22, and then I kind of like did the music thing for a few years. I mean, I didn't become a CPA until I was in my late 20s. So you can do it.
If you work until you're 65, you still have a 35-year accounting career. That's a long time.
The problem you're going to have is that there is a lot of ageism, especially when it comes to the big firms. Like, they don't want to hire you unless you're coming out of that traditional career path. So you're going to have to look for other options, joining a smaller firm or a regional firm to get your experience. But if you can overcome that, I mean, accounting is a great career. And I wish that we made it easier for career changers to come into accounting. That's why we need to streamline these education requirements, because asking somebody to go back to school to earn the equivalent of an entire accounting major when they may not need those credits because they already have the knowledge or they can obtain it somewhere else quicker, like that to me is just unreasonable. We're shooting ourselves in the foot. So, no, it's not too late. You can totally do it. You should do it, especially if you're coming from a career like I had where my earning potential was seriously capped as a musician. And I realized after a year that I definitely wanted to make a lot more money than that. And I wanted more flexibility than
Two
being a
people on
musician.
the live stream actually concur. Right.
Hooked says, I didn't finish my bachelor's until 29. You're not far off from that. I am 8 years in now and doing just fine. I feel like I've made it for the last time. Don't worry too much. Yeah, I actually felt like that when I was in my 20s and I did the career switches. I felt like a failure. I feel like I really screwed up. And like, it's amazing, actually. This is one of the best things about America is like, you can reinvent yourself so many times. Like if I wanted, I'm 40. If I wanted to like change careers, I could do it. And in 10 years, I could be like a lawyer if I wanted to be. I could if I really wanted to do it. Yeah. You can't do that anywhere else. Dr. Morbo says, I got my accounting degree at 35. Never too late. Awesome. That's who we should be focusing on. All those people who are underemployed. Maybe they picked the quote unquote wrong major in college or decided that they didn't want to do what they did after college. And that's the thing is like the vast majority of college graduates do not end up working in the field that they majored in. So why do we tie accounting to an accounting major? We're just constricting the supply of accountants that way. Tino says, I entered accounting when I was 31 years old and I started with a BS in nuclear engineering technology. That's super cool. One of my high school friends actually was a nuclear engineer on, not on subs, he was on aircraft carriers for a while. Doesn't do that anymore, but it's so cool. All right, I got more listener mail, David, unless you've got top stories.
Let's do one ad and then we'll finish out with mail and some oddball stories here.
Cool. And our final sponsor for this episode is
Practice Protect. So Practice Protect is the leading cybersecurity platform trusted by over 26,000 accounting professionals worldwide. As an all-in-one managed solution, Practice Protect puts your firm's security on autopilot, allowing you to focus on being your client's trusted advisor. The Practice Protect platform is tailored for accounting firms and offers comprehensive protection across 5 core areas. An access hub for secure logins, email security to stop scammers, device security for your computers and laptops, a compliance hub to automate regulatory requirements, and security training hub for your team. With Practice Protect, you'll enjoy enterprise-grade security standards, integration with over 6,000 accounting applications, and features like one-click lockout and IP control. The platform not only secures your technology, but also helps you meet compliance standards, providing customized documentation and risk assessments. For just $34 per month per user, you get unlimited usage of the Practice Protect Access Hub, a dedicated onboarding specialist, white glove support, plus Practice Protect offers 90 days satisfaction guarantee, demonstrating their confidence in their service. Don't compromise on your client's data security or your firm's reputation. To join thousands of accounting professionals who trust Practice Protect and to book your security consultation today, head over to accountingpodcast.promo/protect. That is accountingpodcast.promo/PROTECT.
Here is a message from Ken about the $2 billion that was found in South Carolina. So you've got a nice little circular number here, David. We talked about $2 billion the Pentagon found through changing the valuation of their inventory. And we've also in the past talked about the $2 billion that South Carolina found. And that was not a valuation issue. That was
real cash.
We forgot about this bank account issue. And so Ken wrote in to enlighten us on that. How could that happen? Ken says, gentlemen, as a survivor of the federal budgeting system, I may have an insight for you. Governments at all levels requisition and in accordance with the annual or biannual budgets passed by their legislators. So far, so good, but then appropriations begin. Earmarks must be observed, and someone in charge of something somewhere has to square the circle between what has been appropriated and what is being spent. In the federal government, we refer to this as the different colors of money. Sometimes it is 1 year, 2 year, 4 year, or 5 year funds, which gives us the time frame in which these funds must be spent before being returned to another fund, the general fund, or a catch-all fund. At times, many small amounts are not spent for their intended purpose, and the funds must be returned back up the budgeting line to a more senior funding level where reallocation can occur. If these funds are not used or arrive too late for the reallocation process, they can be sent back to a more general fund. Oh man, this sounds complicated. In some instances, due to project delays, accounting incompetence, or a myriad of other reasons, funds are aged out and cannot be reallocated within the current budgeting structure and end up in the fiscal equivalent of a dead letter office where they await the legislature's attention. However, if the treasurer's office loses track of these funds, they just keep automatically accruing without the legislature being made aware of them and therefore not applying them to a future or ongoing requirement. This happens more often than one may think, although typically not for a $1.8 billion fund. Someone obviously lost track of these funds, and they were never surrendered to the legislature for reallocation under an existing budget shortfall or a future budgeting requirement. I have no personal knowledge of these specific funds, but I have seen the situation before. Numerous small amounts, typically in the hundreds and thousands of dollars, are returned in accordance with law and over time simply accrue into millions and billions of dollars to which someone should have been paying attention. I'm just glad they found them and are now able to use them for the people of South Carolina. Ken.
So there was a fund, whatever, obviously, it's for schools, let's just say. That fund didn't get used. There was $100,000 extra. Okay, transferred over to this bank account. Then that happened across multiple funds over multiple years, and it just started to add up. But then that's what's weird is it feels like they don't have any tracking of even that. Like it's very, very strange on the no visibility on what happened, how this money got into the account.
I mean, there clearly is not some sort of dashboard where you have all of the accounts and all of the money in them explaining what these accounts are for. Like that would be something that if people in the treasurer's office looked at, they might say, oh, this account has a lot of money in it. It just keeps accruing. What is this? And I could totally see a situation where they've got some ancient ERP system that doesn't give visibility in that way and just nobody notices it. And maybe somebody does, but they don't think to bring it up, right?
One of our upcoming Earmark app or Earmark Expos, which is an app demo, we're going to have an app called Karma Suite. And that's basically fund accounting and transferring these funds out, making sure you spend them fast enough so you don't get in the situation where you have these surpluses. So stay tuned for that. I'll be putting the link in soon.
Here's a message from Rich. Rich says, long-time listener, first-time caller. With reference to relatively low starting salaries and long hours on those first jobs after graduating, as the training and value while learning on the job and add to the client bill value proposition is not guaranteed, I thought I would mention that other professions like architecture and medicine also have lengthy and challenging working conditions tied to state licensing as well. Yes, and that is one of the top reasons people oppose changes to the 150-hour requirement is they say, well, all these other professions have longer, more difficult licensure requirements. Why should we be lesser than them? And to that, I would say, just because somebody else jumps off a bridge, should you do it too? But also, those professions are able to have more stringent requirements because they are more successful at limiting the practice of whatever it is they do to just people who are licensed. And unfortunately, the ASCPA and NASBA have done a pretty terrible job of limiting the practice of accountancy to CPAs. There are very few things that you actually need to be a CPA to do. If you don't want to sign an audit, I can't think of anything else that you need to be a CPA to do, because you can be an enrolled agent and do tax stuff and represent people before the tax courts. You'd be a lawyer and do that too, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot increase the burden on first-time licenses, right? You cannot increase that educational burden if you don't increase the value. And actually, the value has decreased because it's become easier and easier for non-CPAs to do what CPAs used to do. And you can see this in the top 100 firms. All of these firms that are taking private equity money and spinning out everything except the attest, the audit function, into a separate company that's no longer a CPA firm, that's a threat to the CPA profession. And yet you have the AICPA like cheering these accounting firms that are doing this. I mean, it's insane to me that like they don't see this as an existential threat to the profession. By the time private equity is done going into these top 100 firms, we will have smaller and smaller CPA firms that only do audit. And that's like pushing us into this tiny little niche, because audit is not the accounting profession. It's like less than 20% of the accounting profession.
In a majority of audit, like that's the one thing that when people talk about a job that might go away because of AI, that might be the one.
I just talked to a young guy, Josh, who's at a large accounting firm. This is going to come out as a bonus episode. And he's working on an AI tool that he believes ultimately could automate 99% of internal controls audits. I think audit is great for AI. And we will see companies come out with AI auditors and AI audit tools. And sure, there'll be a CPA involved, but it'll be like one person at the end who signs off on the report. What's going to be left?
Replace an army of interns, the poor word, but junior staff or new staff, the people you burn out in 2 years.
If the AICPA really wants to increase the value of the CPA, they should be trying to restrict the practice of accountancy. Like to only CPAs, or do more in that regard. You can't call yourself an accounting firm unless you are owned by a majority of CPAs, something like that, right? Only Texas is the only large state that does that, I think. And that creates a lot of value for the CPAs in Texas. I don't know. Should they do that? I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying, like, if they actually wanted to increase the value for CPAs, maybe they should try, like, actually doing things that increase the value of the CPA for CPAs.
Become public enemy number one. Go attack a bunch of people that are doing bookkeeping and accounting work.
David says, law of unintended consequences. The pain of working for PE will spawn thousands of new accounting firms. Yes, and as I said in our last episode, now that basically all the partners are non-equity partners in these new non-CPA firms, the private equity-owned firms, they're going to see that they have a lot more earning potential going off and starting their own firm. Will those be CPA firms, though? I don't know. That's another problem, is that there's so much red tape around being a CPA firm. And if you want to provide the most lucrative services, which include, client accounting services, advisory services, tax services, consulting services, and you don't want to do audit, there's very little reason to be a CPA firm these days. It just creates more hassle for you than, and I'm seeing this. I'm seeing a lot of firms start up and they're not CPA firms. Yeah, they may have CPAs working there, but they're not CPA firms. And that's a big problem for the accounting profession. I'd be worried if I were a state board of accountancy, and if I were the AICPA, I'd be worried about that, trying to do something about that. You got to make it appealing for people to want to be CPA firms and to be CPAs. Here's a message from Jim. Jim says, love your show. The fact that the CPA exam is now in the Philippines makes me kind of sick. Not only are they not fixing the pipeline problem for CPAs in the USA, they are making it worse. It's always about catering to the big firms and those partners who just want to cash out. Now it's all about cheap labor. Let's forget about quality and just make problems worse for our own culture. I just don't understand the logic and find it to be very worrisome. Thanks. This is a really good point, and it actually goes to what we were just talking about, which is you've got NASBA focused on making it easier for non-U.S. citizens to become CPAs, but not making it easier for U.S. citizens to become CPAs. That seems wrong. Doesn't it, David?
Yeah, it feels like this is one of the things that if Congress gets a hold of this, like this could be NASBA could find themselves on national news, right? Oh, it's going to take the right senator to get all fired up about that when they hear about that, right?
Well, when it's going to become unsustainable is when you have these private equity firms controlling these, what used to be CPA firms that are now accounting firms, that are dictating policy at the AICP and NASBA because they pay the member dues. So really, who does the AICP work for, right? Yeah. It's going to be private equity eventually when there are no more equity partners. And that is a little bit of a disconnect for me, because the AICPA is supposedly advocating for CPAs. And you could say that when the equity partners were CPAs, right?
Yeah.
But not when the equity partner is private equity.
It'll be interesting to see, like, will they be able to bully them? Like what will be the result of that?
Follow the money, right? Who pays the dues at the AICPA? It's the accounting firms, right?
Yeah.
The managing partners. That's who the customer of the AICPA is. And that's why you see AICPA policies have benefited the equity partners at accounting firms, large accounting firms, not small ones, and not individual CPAs. And the AICPA in the past actually advocated against overtime wage protections for CPAs. And they specifically said because it would hurt CPA firm profits.
Because the owners.
Yeah.
But do you foresee a future where, in theory, some of these private equity companies are gigantic and they have their own, because they're doing private equity across lots of industries, and they probably have their own connection to their own lobbyists, right? That they would say, like, well, we don't even want to pay AICPA anymore. Like, they just completely don't write these huge checks for 20,000 of their employees. Completely.
Yeah. That's a really good point, David. Is like, if enough of the top firms are owned by private equity, at what point do the private equity firms like look at this line item on their P&L for the AICPA membership and say, you know what, we don't actually need them anymore, and just stop paying?
That's what PE does, right? They squeeze.
Yeah. Right. And the managing partners, they did it out of peer pressure, right? Like you can't not pay your AICPA dues if you're a top firm, right? But private equity folks don't think that way. They're just all about the numbers. So that is a big threat to the AICPA. I mean, they may think it's great now, but just wait. Just wait and see what happens.
When one of these firms don't spend 20 grand, 30 grand, or pay for 20,000 people's memberships,
David Scully says, sounds like we found Blake and David's next business, the successor to the AICPA, laboring on behalf of actual accountants, offering competitive insurance and lobbying for the future of the industry. I mean, somebody's got to do it. I think the Earmark community could be that. If you want to be a part of the future of the accounting profession, get on the ground floor with our Earmark community. Go to earmark.community. Let's talk about this stuff. What can we do to advocate for CPAs? Somebody's got to do it. And really, that's what this entire show has been about over the last 6 years. Well, it started as, just me and David talking about technology and accounting because we like to nerd out about that stuff. But it has morphed into really a way for us to talk about the problems and the solutions necessary to help the accounting profession advance. And technology is just one of those solutions, right? That's why we renamed this show to just the Accounting Podcast.
But it's not us just talking about it. We're raising voices.
Yeah.
That have existed, and they were hallway conversations, and they were emails, and like, it's not like you and I are just one day woke up and be like, let's do this.
Yeah.
It's actually grassroots. Like, we're just regurgitating inputs we've taken from all of you.
We are listening to you. When we go to conferences, we talk to you. We hear you online. We see what's being discussed on the web, and we talk about that on the show and bring it to light. And we know there are lots of leaders in the accounting profession who listen at state societies, boards of accountancy, AICPA and NASBA, who think like progressively, like you do, like we do. And it's just a matter of time until the leadership changes over and we get the change that we need. So we're doing our small part to like bring those voices, like David said, to light, to the top. And I think AICPA needs to realize they can no longer control the narrative. As you have always said, David.
Clue Train Manifesto.
Yeah, you love that book. Everyone, I still haven't read that book, and you've been talking about it for years.
You don't have to just read the 99 Theses. That's all you have to do.
So they can't control the narrative anymore. They're losing control of it, and they're losing control of California and the states. This top-down, let's control this from the top method, like that's really old school. Maybe it worked when Barry Melanson took over the AICPA, back in the dark ages, but it doesn't work anymore. Hooked says, I have opted to go for a CMA instead of a CPA as I have never been in public and I don't have a way to get my hours signed off on as my managers have never been CPAs. It's a bit discouraging. Yeah, that's a big problem, right? Like why does a CPA have to sign off on your work experience requirement? It makes it so difficult to get through that work experience requirement because your direct supervisor has to be a CPA. And it's really hard to do if you're not in public accounting. But now, even in public accounting, a lot of the managers are not CPAs.
Yes.
They can't sign off. So, right, we've got this old school licensure system for this old school system that we don't have anymore. I'm sorry, but Hooked, the CMA is a great credential, and the IMA is doing awesome stuff. So do not be discouraged. You will do great as a CMA.
I think back in the day, and I'm going back 2-3 years, but I think CMA salaries were higher, right? I think we talked about in the show, like this is why people are going down that path, because they were getting a little bit more money.
Yeah. Well, David, that's all the time we have this week. We've got more listener mail that we will get to next week. And do join us, earmark.community, and send an email to theaccountingpodcast@earmark.me. We love hearing from you, our listeners. Thank you, everyone who joined us live. Find us on YouTube. Help us get to 20,000 subscribers. We'll have a party or something. I don't know when we do. David, see you here next time. Bye, everyone.